This is the truly desirable life. The guy heads into the forest and builds a stunning bathhouse out of logs. Nestled in nature, it's the perfect spot to kick back and relax. The first step, get your bearings right. Marking the area for the bathhouse might seem simple, but it's the foundation of everything. A solid plan is key to avoiding missteps later. One wrong move could mean uneven walls or a slanted roof, and nobody wants that. The guy decides to use log piles for support. They need to be firmly anchored in the ground. This isn't the kind of place where you want your bathhouse to be sinking like a sandcastle. It's all about stability after all. You wouldn't want to take a relaxing bath and suddenly find yourself in the swamp. Before setting them in place, it's a good idea to burn the logs. Why? Well, not only does it help prevent rotting, but it's also a great excuse to make a fire. It's like giving your logs a spa treatment, minus the cucumber slices. A little smoke, a little heat, and you've got yourself wood that'll last. Plus, burning them adds character. Who doesn't love the smell of campfire wood? The support is formed from 6 logs for reliability. It's like the foundation of a good joke, strong, simple, and solid. Now it's time to lay down the first layer of logs. It's a bit like playing Jenga. You're stacking and balancing, just hoping everything stays in place. But instead of the sweet sound of success, when the tower holds, you get the satisfying feeling of watching your bathhouse grow taller. That's a win in anyone's book. When the first row is ready, it's time to lay the next. Like a game of Tetris, just without the flashing lights and with more splinters. Here, he's making grooves in the logs to fit them perfectly, kind of like carving a perfect slot in a puzzle, but with more wood and fewer pieces. To avoid any gaps between the logs, the guy uses dry grass for insulation. It's nature's version of a gap filler, cheap, easy, and surprisingly effective. Once the foundation's ready, it's time to prep for the floor. The guy grabs his chainsaw and starts smoothing out the logs because, let's face it, nobody wants to trip over a log while trying to enjoy a nice soak. With the logs flattened, it's time to lay down the floorboards. But here's the trick. The guy leaves just the right amount of space between the planks so water can flow freely underneath. This bathhouse is about to get really damp, but he's determined to avoid turning it into a swamp. Water needs an escape route, so he carefully spaces the boards like he's putting together a jigsaw puzzle, except this time, it's for a dry floor, not a soggy mess. The last thing you want in a bathhouse is puddles everywhere, right? Since this bathhouse is about to get pretty damp, the guy treats the floor with an antiseptic. Gotta protect that wood because a soggy, rotten bathhouse is no one's idea of luxury. Now comes the fun part, using fallen timber to build the walls. Instead of buying expensive wood, the guy decides to use what nature provides. After all, why pay for timber when you've got a forest full of it, right? It's like nature's version of recycling. Grab the timber, drag it over, and voila, walls in the making. Who says you can't get luxury materials for free? After collecting the timber, the guy starts stacking it, row by row. To make sure the walls are tight and secure, he uses jute insulation. The jute is like the unsung hero of the build, filling in the gaps between logs. He even shoves some dry grass in there for extra insulation. It's like making a giant sandwich of wood and grass, deliciously cozy, but without the calories. He starts by sealing the gaps between the logs with dry grass and jute because, hey, if it's good enough for your grandma's old house, it's good enough for this bathhouse. Once that's done, he goes to work with foam insulation, filling every groove like he's tucking in a bed. Then, he grabs his trusty nails and starts securing the logs one layer at a time, just like stacking firewood, but with more finesse and fewer splinters. With each layer, the walls start to take shape, and the bathhouse slowly begins to feel like, well, a bathhouse. Now that the walls are up, it's time to focus on the roof. This is where the real magic happens. The guy doesn't need a massive, high roof, just something that'll keep the rain out and provide a cozy atmosphere. It's all about comfort, not grandeur. After all, who needs a cathedral when you just want to take a relaxing steam bath? With the roof framework ready, things get easier. The guy is now working from the ground, cutting and shaping everything right where it belongs. It's like putting together a puzzle where the pieces are bigger, heavier, and less forgiving. but at least no one's coming over to steal the last piece. To cover the roof, the guy opts for smaller poles. Once again, nature provides. There's no shortage of materials in the forest, but he needs to prepare them carefully, ensuring they're ready for installation. First, he decides to create windows using the same method as before, giving the bathhouse a little extra light. After all, every bathhouse needs a window, even if it's just to keep an eye on the wildlife. Now, it was time to install the door. He set to work, cutting carefully, because honestly, what was the point of building a bathhouse if you couldn't even get the door in? It didn't take long for the bathhouse to take shape as a door. It was no longer just piles of wood, but a legitimate bathhouse with an entrance. Then it's time to move on to the crucial part, laying the roof. A sturdy piece of wood is steadily put up, a hammer is swung, and clank, 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 nails are quickly put into place to hold the wood firmly in place. As the wood continues to be laid out, the outline of the roof becomes clearer, and the prototype has emerged. The basic framework of the cabin has been completed. It is rustic and solid, with the log exterior walls complementing the surrounding forest scenery, bringing with it a leisurely and wild interest that is firmly rooted here. Stepping into the house, a sense of warmth comes to you, making you think of the good times ahead. The man starts by laying a large roll of plastic film over the roof. Think of it as a clear, waterproof armor that blocks the rain's first assault. Right after, he adds a thick tarpaulin on top, doubling down on the protection. This is serious business, like putting a raincoat on your house, just to be sure nothing goes wrong. Once the tarpaulin is secure, it's time for the next step, spreading soil evenly over the roof. But this isn't random, oh no. This is a genius move, inspired by the traditional earth house technique. The layer of soil not only keeps the rain out, but also buffers the outside temperature, taking the first step in insulating the bathhouse. It's like putting a blanket on your house for a cozy night in. But wait, it gets even better. The man, not content with just functional insulation, decides to give the roof a facelift. He finds a large area of fresh moss and arranges it carefully on top. The once plain roof is now full of life, vibrant and green, looking like a little piece of art straight from the forest. Not only is the roof practical, but now it's a unique masterpiece, blending perfectly with the green surroundings, like a gift from the forest itself. Next, the guy tackles the foundation insulation. Looking at his leftover logs, he thinks, why not use these? They're free and work just as well. He covers them with sand for extra protection. No need for fancy materials when you've got the right mindset and a little DIY magic. The next step is to perfect the door, only to see the man holding a measuring tool, eyes focused, inch by inch, precise measurement, every data are repeatedly checked to ensure that the exact difference. Immediately after, the chainsaw roars, wood shavings flying, in his steady and orderly operation, cutting action in a flowing stream. A piece of wood gradually have the shape of the fit. Not long, the door's frame will be steadily stood in front of our eyes, solid and regular. Once the frame was built, the warmth of the door could not be compromised. The man took out the thick felt and carefully fitted it to the inside of the door, patiently smoothing out each corner and gently fixing it with nails, making the felt as a warm guardian to keep out the cold outside, and firmly locking in the heat inside the house. Insulation is done. The installation of hinges is the next big thing. The man picks up the hinges, draws a good position, the screwdriver flies, screws tighten one by one, to ensure that the hinges open and close smoothly, firm and durable. To make the door blend in with nature, the man picked up the spray gun and brushed the surface of the door with a blue flame. As the temperature soaked in, the door gradually faded from cold and hard, stained with a rustic brown color, as if it had been rubbed by the forest for a long time, and filled with the smell of nature. Finally, the door lock is installed in place. Click a light sound, announcing the completion of this combination of beauty, practicality and warmth of the bathhouse door, quietly standing there, ready to meet the future of every opening and closing, guarding the bathhouse within the comfortable time. Time to work on the inside. What's a bathhouse without a place to relax? He installs a big top shelf and a smaller bottom one, perfect for kicking back and pretending you're in a spa. The next step was to install the chimney. First, the guy measures the exact spot where the chimney will go. It's a bit like playing chess, careful planning, and no room for mistakes. After a few checks, he drives for long nails through the roof from the inside, marking the spot with impressive precision. Now, it's time for the roof cleaning session. With shovel in hand, he digs away at the hay and dirt, clearing space like a professional landscaper only. Instead of a garden, it's a roof. With a roar of the machine, the cutter fires up, and the real fun begins. He starts cutting a hole in the roof, big enough for the chimney, but not too big to cause the whole thing to collapse. Well, hopefully. The chimney itself, it's crafted from sheet metal, naturally. Before cutting the metal, he takes careful measurements. It's not rocket science, but still, you don't want to end up with a chimney that's too big or too small. That'd be awkward. With the metal piece prepped and marked, he begins cutting the chimney hole, paying close attention to his measurements. One wrong move, and he could end up with a crooked chimney, or worse, a roof with a hole that doesn't fit the chimney at all. Once everything's cut and ready, it's time to nail the chimney into place. He secures the sheet metal tightly to the roof, making sure the hole lines up just right. Now, no more rain inside, hopefully. Next, the man carefully plans out where the stove will go in the house. Think of it like trying to find the perfect spot for a new sofa, except this one's a bit heavier and definitely doesn't fit in a living room. He ensures all the fireproofing materials are properly installed, so that when it's time to bring in the fireplace, everything will be safe and sound. And now, the moment we've all been waiting for, the stove finally makes its grand entrance. With all the precision of a surgeon, the man carefully carries the fireplace to its planned spot. He lines it up with the chimney like a perfect puzzle piece, adjusting here, tweaking there, until everything fits just right. With everything in place, it's finally time for the bathhouse's first big test. And no, we're not talking about whether it looks Instagrammable. We're talking about the all-important "can I actually chill in here without feeling like I'm about to catch a cold" test. Spoiler alert, it's a win. The bathhouse is officially done. Cozy, functional, and ready to provide a much-needed escape from the chaos of the world. It's not just a bathhouse, it's your personal slice of heaven in the wilderness, a place where you can finally unwind, forget about the daily grind, and let the forest work its magic.